That guy right there, if you're watching on YouTube, has done everything except be a New York Times bestseller, but I think that's on the horizon, Shane. How are you, man? Welcome to the show. So good to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. I don't know about New York Times bestseller, but definitely been a fun experience the last month and a half to kind of see the last year of work on the children's book, and then to start to see people buying it and
Mhm.
reading it to their kiddos and stuff like that. So very exciting, a little different, a little bit of a curveball to the pitching arsenal, but a fun project nonetheless.
Right, folks, you obviously know this because you've downloaded the podcast. He is Shane Bacon. I've gotten to know Shane over the last few years, now becoming essentially a media mogul also. For the folks who don't know you from around the globe, Shane, give us just a quick whistle stop, the bio, the walk through who you are, please.
Yeah, I'm somebody that has been involved in and around golf for a long time. I worked in the pro shop, in my country club in East Texas, a little 9-hole country club that you play twice. You play a different set of tees on the back nine to give it 18 holes. Picked the range, washed golf carts, did that, and then went to college. Was going to try to play golf in college. Actually had an injury my senior year, and
Full phone,
I
right?
I had a wrist injury and was going to try to retry out for the couple colleges that had interest in me. And I ended up just saying, you know what, I've been grinding at this sport for a while. I'm going to go to college and enjoy it. And went to Arizona and ended up writing about golf for 4 years for the student newspaper. So I didn't get away from it that much. And then, after college, I worked at a golf course trying to work on my game and see where it would take me. So I worked in Scottsdale at True North outside service, pulling carts and scrubbing wrenches and throwing bags in the back of cars and working on tips and that type of stuff. And tried to play mini tour golf for about 2 years, and learned pretty quickly how that world is. I learned very quickly that 71 does not play in the mini tour sphere. So when that didn't play out the way I was hoping it would play out, I got into the media side of things, and I started a blog and wrote for some different entities out there, and Yahoo Sports and AOL and CBS Sports, and eventually got the TV. And I caddied a little bit in the middle of all that, and still try to play relatively competitive amateur golf, and have been fortunate to work with some great folks at Fox Sports and Golf Channel and CBS Sports and some different entities there. And so, yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. And, the one thing I always claim is I would say I've probably worked as many golf jobs as in terms of different golf jobs as anybody out there.
Yeah, look, certainly. If nothing else, and I'm going the teacher in me, I can't keep this thing down as much as what I try and quell it. I'm wanting to go here and say to most folks, maybe this is a subliminal message to my eldest daughter, that what you did, golf is the common denominator, right?
Right.
And if you've got this game, no matter how well you play it, it just opens doors for you, doesn't it?
Oh, I mean, I had one kind of non-golf job. I moved to Denver. I had a girlfriend. We broke up. I was living in Phoenix. I was heartbroken. I'd move away. Right, that's the thing you do when you're young. You think if you move away, it changes your entire world sphere, and it does not change your world. By the way, to the young people listening, but I moved to Denver and took a real job. I was working for an oil company, and the CEO was a big golfer,
Yeah.
and he would invite me to play golf all the time. Now I was a nobody, right? But he would invite me to play golf. Well, his daughter was a really competitive golfer and played collegiate golf in Nevada. And she moved back to Denver after college. And what did she do? Her first job, she was playing in the scrambles with the CEO. So it is, you see the successful people that are obsessed with golf. You see people in the business world and professional athletes, and basically everybody that you meet and experience that owns their own company, they're obsessed with this game. So it doesn't have to be in the forefront, but as long as you're interested in it and you like playing it and you want to get better and you want to talk about it, it's going to be woven in just about every profession and every walk of life out there.
Yeah, preaching, brother. Okay, that's who you are. I need to talk about this before we get to the book, which I think is so cool. It's such a novel idea. But you spent some time caddying at St. Andrews. Now, a little backstory. I've done a lot of things in golf too, including caddy on some professional tours in Europe, but caddying for club golfers at the old course. Now, that has to be one of those experiences where you certainly have everybody. And to know that place and every nook and cranny of it must be exhilarating. But look back on that some for us, and maybe you've seen golfers of all walks of life there. You're a good player in your own right. Share just one lesson from that experience, taking it away, going, all right, golfers, I've seen all of you. This is the common denominator.
I would say the first thing I learned, and this is not meant to be mean to the average golfer, but I was surprised at how bad the average golfer was. And when I say that, I say they have no idea about their own golf game. They don't know how far they hit any golf club. They don't really understand trajectory. They don't understand how to hit a bump and run versus to hit a high golf shot. The funny thing about that is, Mark, too, and I know you've probably run into this a million times, is they don't totally understand their game, yet they're not necessarily willing to listen to you. And so when you're telling them, hey, just try to bump a 7-iron, and they still grab that sand wedge. And, it takes you till about the 11th or 12th hole. So they'll finally go, all right, buddy, let me hit the 7-iron and just see what happens here. So I'd say that was the first thing that shocked me. And the other thing was the idea of numbers. I mean, you think your 7-iron goes a certain distance. Well, that's the perfectly struck 7-iron. That's the best 7-iron you can hit. I played a ton of golf in Arizona when I was trying to play and post play with my uncles. One of my uncle's best friend in the world, his name's Greg Harmon. And, this was the club pro through and through. This is a guy that had all the game in the world. He played in Phoenix Opens. He's played in Tucson Opens. He's played in senior major championships. He is a ball striking maestro, right? Yet he would tell me at times I hit 4 or 5 good shots around, or he'd be hitting a 7-iron when I have 9. And I mean, maybe I'm a club longer than he is, but I'd be shocked that he's hitting a 7-iron. And it's, this whole idea that I don't hit it solid often. And this is a guy that hit it as good as anybody I knew. And so if he's a guy that doesn't totally buy into his exact distance, then why would the 15 handicap that I'm caddying for do that? So I would, and Brendan Porath has talked a lot about this on the Shotgun Start, I would lie about the numbers a lot. It'd be 150 and I'd say it was, 140 or 130 just to get him to hit the shot, or 160, 170.
I've done that.
Absolutely, you have to do it. And it would finally get them into a bit of a rhythm. But I would also say the caddying at the Old Course, it is the most famous golf course in the world. I mean, especially globally. Americans think about Augusta National and they think about Pebble Beach, but much like soccer, globally it's St. Andrews and it's the Old Course. And that's where people want to go play their one round of golf. And just kind of stepping back as a caddy and letting them experience it, letting them do the loop walk, letting them walk up 17 and 18. Didn't matter if they were a millionaire CEO or a 19-year-old kid out with their father, the experience was the same to everybody. And you would just see they're walking around 18, looking around. And it was one of those rare moments that adults got to feel like a kid again. And I would say that was the most special part of my experience, was you got to walk with these people, potentially playing this once in a lifetime round, that once in their lifetime.
Yeah. Hey, I've been lucky to go there a few times. And I got to say, look, I'm a red wine and tequila drinker. Actually, I drink everything, but I'm not a big beer guy. But there's no better tasting beer in the world than the one as you come off the Old Course in St. Andrews, right?
Oh, it doesn't matter which pub you pick. I mean, you can go to the Jigger, you can go to the Dunvegan, or you can be lucky enough to be invited into the RNA Clubhouse or the new club, whatever. And if you get that opportunity, you're sipping the pint and you're going, that was my day. I don't, maybe I birdied 18, maybe I made 6 on 18, but that was what it was all about.
I gotta have you do this. You've talked about the club golfer. Maybe I'm putting the cart in front of the horse, but this is kind of how I interview. The mini tour player, you've been there. The thing that jumps out to you for the aspirant mini tour pro who's now wanting to listen to Shane Bacon, what would you say to them?
It's kind of funny. It's almost the opposite of the average player, where you run into a mini tour player and there's a lot of confidence inside that player and they know they have all the shots. I remember how I felt. I was 22, 23, and I was working outside service at True North, and I had my buddy Eric Bailey and my buddy Ashton Woods, who were both trying to play pro as well. And there were those weeks where you'd beat them, you beat both of them the whole week, and you'd think you were really, really good at golf. So I'd say at times it was humbling yourself and reminding yourself that you have holes in your game. Let's work on these types of things that maybe you're not great at, or maybe you're spending too much time working on the thing you're good at and not spending enough time working on the hole in your game. I mean, you think about these NBA players that follow that Kobe mold, right? Where they'd go and they'd work on the thing they're not great at in the offseason, so they come back a more complete player. I think about Max, and you look at Max Homa's short game and his pitching, and his caddy Joe Griner told me something on the putting green after the Fortinet when he pitched in, for birdie and makes that shot. And then Will at 3 putts. And he said that they'd done some basically studies on the short game. And his coach, Mark Blackburn, had said, you are the best statistical pitcher from fairway grass of anybody in professional golf right now. And Griner said he told him that right before hitting that pitch shot. But you go back a year and a half before that, and Max was in the mid 150s in that category, right? He'd spent all of his time working on the flaw in his game that he needed to work on. So I would say it's being a bit humbled in what you're not great at and reminding yourself that. And the other thing is understanding that making a bogey is not that bad. Having a bad hole doesn't need to derail your day. Look at Jordan Spieth. Look at Rory McIlroy. These guys make bogeys all the time, and maybe they bounce back and make a birdie on the next hole. Maybe they don't, but it's a reminder that bogey, and this is something we're going to get to in a little bit later, but it's reminding yourself that the bad hole doesn't have to doom your round, your day, your tournament. And I think when you're young, that's so hard to understand, but it's so important to help you throughout your early parts of your career is when it goes bad, don't let that ruin everything. Because even players, even the best in the world, Tiger Woods went through phases in his golf game where he couldn't hit the golf shot that when he was at his prime was literally close your eyes and hit it.
Yeah. You can see he's a pro, folks. He hosts a podcast and does TV. So that was a tease he just dropped on you to say we're going to get back to some tips. Okay, before we go there, the Golfers Zoo. I saw your tweet or whatever it was when you released this. I know it'd been something that had been in the works for a while. And it ostensibly is just a really fun book on mea culpa. I've not gotten it for my kiddies just yet. Where it's like for parents to give to their children or to give to someone else's children to ignite a passion for this great game that we were just talking about, to say that it's so good to become involved in. So share about it, the inspiration, how it came to be and stuff, please.
Yeah, you probably can't hear my children running above me right now on the house. I hope that doesn't get picked up on the mic. But my 3-year-old son, I would say, is the inspiration for it. As you do, I get a lot of golf stuff sent to me. I get a lot of random golf stuff sent to me. When you have a child for the first time, you get the little booties from FootJoy and you get the golf balls from Titleist with their names on them. And I was shocked at how few golf books I received for children. And then I started to look into this, and there are a couple out there, but considering how obsessed we are with golf, and when I say we, I mean parents that play, and how much we buy a Master shirt or 2 or 3 for our kid if we go to Augusta National, or a Ryder Cup hoodie if we go to the Ryder Cup. We are always buying those things for our kids, yet there wasn't a ton of market out there in terms of the children's golf books. So I was thinking about that, and then my buddy Joel Klatt, who does such a great job on the college football front at Fox Sports, I remember he told me a story. I called him one day and I said, "Hey, Joel," he has 3 sons. One of them named Henry as well, same as my son. And I said, "What do you do with your kids when you go play golf that keeps them interested?" Because they were young and I was just picking the brains of some of my dads out there. And he said, "I'll play a hole of golf serious, like we played a hole out. And then the next hole's theirs. So if they want to go build sandcastles in the bunker, if they want to throw rocks in the pond, if they want to just ride in circles in the golf cart, whatever hole number 2 is, that's their hole. And then 3 will play real and 4 will be theirs." And he kept mentioning the animals. And so there was a bit of an inspiration from that, where it opened my mind up to the idea that no matter where you live, no matter what country you live in, your golf course has a zoo on it. Now, if you live in Arizona, that might be lizards and scorpions and snakes. If you live in Whistler, that might be bears and elk, right? But everybody's got this zoo that exists on their golf course, and it's a park, right? I mean, golf courses are in fact parks. And so that was a bit of where the inspiration came from. Was kids love animals and books. They love cool illustrations of animals. Why not marry those 2 things and throw a little bit of golf in there? And so that was basically the inspiration for the book, and that's where the zoo came from.
Every parent now is wondering, all right, how do I get one of these? Please direct them and just send them in the right way.
Happily. Yeah. Back Nine Press, worked with Jim at Back Nine Press, does an amazing job with golf books, and a slightly independent publisher, which I really loved. And so if you go to back9thenumberpress.com/bacon, that'll take you right to the Golfer Zoo. Or if you just look up the Golfer Zoo or go to back9press.com, you'll find it there. But, buy it for your kiddo or buy it for the golfer in your life that's obsessed with golf, that has a young one either in the family or on the way. And I will say, Mark, I've done a lot of really cool stuff in my career. I've worked at Augusta National. I've worked at U.S. Opens. Getting the images from parents reading this book to their kids. I had a friend of mine out here in Connecticut, and he said he was walking his kid to the bus stop the other day, and the girl, the neighbor, girl next to theirs was holding the golfer zoo, taking it to school for show and tell day because she's had her dad read it to her for the entire week. These are things that give you goosebumps and they're pinch yourself moments. And I thought it would be a cool project, but I never realized it would be something like this. So they have been special moments. I've cried more on social media than I've ever maybe cried in my entire life, seeing some of these, these kids wanting to read the book more or have dad read it again or grab it from the bookshelves. So been a very unique and special little thing to throw out there.
It's going to sound like a dumb question. Forgive me. Is it one of those that you do in one sitting with your little tot?
Oh yeah. You can blow through it in one sitting. I mean, Henry picks 2 books or 3, depending on what time we go to bed at night. So I would say this is probably more on the 2-book side. You're going to read this and another maybe smaller read, a little bit more Dr. Seuss than Brown Bear, but you can plow through this in 6, 7, 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes if you're kind of going through them and letting them point out the animals.
Said like a true parent. Okay, so it's back the number 9.
Yeah, back9press.com/bacon. And we're shipping international and doing all sorts of different stuff. So like I said, I appreciate the support if you're interested in the book.
This is stupid because it's a kid's book to read to kids. Is there a digital version, or is this just one of those books that you can hold? Like,
yeah,
these ones I got on my desk over here.
Yeah, it's not a digital one. I have some book ideas upcoming that potentially will be digital versions. Yeah. But for now, the children's book is meant to be in hand and flip through, and the animals bring it to life. And I think that's a big part of why the kids enjoy it.
Sounds great. Okay. You talked about it. We've already got 2 lessons for folks on here. When I reached out to you, I naturally wanted to talk about the book because I think it's cool. I think it's a lovely gift idea here for this Christmas season. And it's a neat way for parents to sort of introduce their kids to the game also. Because I get a lot of those questions too. It's like, all right, what do I do? And my response is like, make the game fun, which is hard. I'll be honest, dad of a golfer.
Right.
Like make sure there's ice cream afterwards, or make it, touch all of the senses. Don't just make this about grinding. So I reached out to you and I was like, all right, you've been in the game, you've seen them all, you've played golf with a bunch of the best. I want a few lessons to share for our audience. So you've given something for the mini tour guys and something that I love about yardages and knowing your game for what you saw when you were a caddy. So kick us off. You said you got 3. What's the first insight, please?
Yeah, first insight is an equipment insight, and that is just make sure you don't have big holes in the yardages. I think this is something what's so funny, Mark, and I know you run into this daily, if not hourly, but the golfer that's obsessed with golf and plays golf all the time and either has bad grips that need regripped or has holes in their bag. And when I say holes in the bag, it's you have the pitching wedge from the set, and then you go to the sand wedge and there's a 20 to 25 yard gap and you're always trying to chip something. Or you have a 3-wood and then your next iron's a 4-iron and there's this enormous gap. And I even find this with good players at times. There'll be a 15, 20 yard gap where they're trying to manufacture something. Don't make it harder than it already is. Let equipment be your friend. So if you have that hole, maybe you're a 4-wedge person and you can live on 3 wedges and you can add that hybrid or that iron that can kind of catch up in that 210 or 215 yard range that you maybe have that big hole in. So I would say one is make that part of the game easier. Lean on the holes in your bag so you're never in a place where you literally don't have a club to make a swing at. Is that something you've seen players struggle with or have issues with?
Yeah, and I would that's a fantastic insight, and I'd almost build on that to go, I've seen countless golfers, and I know you have too, where they've got this set of clubs and the 3-iron is never used, and the 4-iron
never dirty.
So they've essentially wasting 2 clubs on
Correct.
2 clubs that are in there like the Christmas decoration on the backside of the tree that you can't see.
Yeah, I mean, you put the bad ornaments on the back of the tree, right? I mean, that's why you put the balls and the little 12, you have 12 candy canes. You put the ones that mean something in the front of the tree. Don't waste space in the bag. I know there's 14 clubs, but they get filled up really, really quickly. So, and that's another thing. I had a person tell me one time at the start of every year, turn all your coat hangers the other way in your closet. And at the end of the year, if they've got any that are turned the wrong way, throw the shirt out. You don't wear that shirt anymore. And that's kind of the same thing. Pay attention to how much dirt is on an iron. And if it's been 2 or 3 rounds and the club isn't dirty, that club isn't your friend. You need to lose it and find something you're going to play with.
Hey, folks, life advice, not just golf advice here from Mr. Bacon. No, what you say there is so well founded. And I almost want to take it a little further and say, I've seen situations where one guy who was, to your observation, very creative, and he had a left-handed 7-iron in the bag. Comes for a lesson. I'm like, what's this for? And he goes, man, I have to chip out a bunch. He goes, and this at least gives me options. And I joked with him. I'm like, for real? And he goes, yeah. And then he said, and also, I hit balls in practice with this, and that sort of keeps me two-sided. So I was like, this is wide thinking. But to what you said, it's have the author is the pen or the computer or whatever. The artist has the palette of colors and the paintbrushes. Have the paintbrushes that you're going to use to get the most out of your day, because golf is one of those things beautifully, I think, in a way. We got to learn to look at it that way, where every day is different, and every day you got to find a way to craft something new.
And one of my other points I had is kind of when you're thinking about your day, the way you're pointed it out, and it's so smart that when you think about your golf and you think about your time, and if you're a parent out there or you've got a job or you've got stuff that kind of gets in the way of your golf, right? Real life things that get in the way of your time on the golf course. Let's say you're a twice a week range person or once a week range person. Make sure you're practicing to keep yourself interested. That's something I've had to learn as I've gotten older. Is Tiger tainted a lot of the ways we think about golf, but Tiger tainted the way we think about the range. Tiger would always talk about going to the range from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m., right? Hitting range balls till your hands bleed.
Yeah.
I've learned that my brain doesn't work like that. If I go to the range and I'm hitting 7-iron, 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 it's not helping me at all. And I've actually learned this in my backyard. I put in, one of those celebrity putting greens.
You've been my inspiration, by the way.
Oh, it's so good. I love it. Even in cold weather, I had like 4 layers on yesterday chipping. I really felt like a Northeasterner, but if I hit 8 chips in a row, Mark, I lose interest. And I'm saying to the same hole. So what I've learned is it helps me a lot to hit 4 balls to 4 different holes, or to hit 4 chips to the same hole, but hit them different trajectory. Let's hit one high with spin. Let's hit the one that hits and checks, rolls out. Let's hit the one that has no spin at all. It's just keeping yourself engaged in the way you practice. And the same can be said about putting or anything. Is how is your brain locked into what you're spending 45 minutes or an hour on to actually help yourself get better? Because it's so easy to get lost in practice, and that should be the time you're actually trying to improve. So make sure what you're doing actually is helping yourself, that next day or that next week when you're out actually on the golf course.
It's the biggest. You've hit something there. You've touched a nerve. It is one of my biggest bugaboos, and it makes my eyes spout blood when I see a guy on the range, or a girl for that matter, and they're just hitting and hitting and hitting, and it looks like, I call them AP, they're on autopilot, and really it's time wasting and some cardio, but there's no forward progress because there's zero focus, really, because they're not mentally engaged, like you mentioned.
It's, I've been running more over the last year and a half. I've been doing a little bit more running. And it's funny because when I'm home, I have a 4-mile loop I'll do from my house. I go down by the water and I come back, and it's exactly 4 miles. I did it this morning. And what's funny is I notice that I get so lost mentally in the run. It's so kind of quote unquote easy for me because I know all of the check marks, right? I know when I get to the cafe, I'm close to the mile done. When I know I get close to the loop, I'm almost halfway done. It's funny because when I run on the road or I run somewhere that's not home, it's harder for me to complete the 4 miles because I have to be paying a little bit more attention. And so again, it's just a reminder that your mind is a very powerful thing, and you've got to continue to test that mind, and you could do it in practice as well. So that's one of the key parts for me, is just making sure when you're spending the time working on your game, you're actually spending the time doing something helpful for your game. And when you're talking about practice and you're talking about things you can work on with your golf game, I would say obsess over speed over line. I was playing a scramble the other day, and I did a big scramble.
Wait. Are we still on equipment, or are you into other terms? Right?
I'm moving away. I'm moving on to one other point here, because I think it falls in the same realm on practice. Is I did a scramble podcast the other day, and I was thinking about scrambles a lot last week.
Okay.
And I played in a scramble a couple of weeks ago. And Mark, how often when you're playing in a scramble, or you're playing with a partner and you're reading a putt, how often are you obsessing over, is it a ball out? Is it a cup out? Is it a cup and a half out? We obsess over line, and yet speed is the factor in putting. And if you hit a putt 4 feet offline with the correct speed, you're going to have a 4-footer, right? I mean, how wild is that? 4 feet offline, And if you hit Jordan Spieth pace, you're going to have a 4-footer to save par. So just if you practice, focus on speed, figure out a practice tool in your arsenal that can help with speed. Because if you can work on that speed, and I was reading Normal Sport from Kyle Porter the other day, and it was Justin Thomas was talking about how good Jordan Spieth's speed is. He said his putts never hit the back of the cup. They always fall in the middle. And I was thinking about how important speed is to the golfer. And so just again, maybe don't even putt to a cup, put tees out there, but practice that speed and work on understanding what speed is, what comes into speed. Grain is, if you're in a grainy area, read putts from the other side of the green to get a better idea of if it's uphill or downhill. But speed is the thing that kills the average golfer, and speed is the most important part of putting.
Amen. I have to ask this, and you're a power guy. You hit the thing a long ways. The Bush Telegraph talks about this. I speak with folks who play golf alongside you, and they're like, Shane's long. Okay, so I asked this question, and it's something you likely don't have to worry about, but I honestly feel like the world at large has sold the golfer a bad bill of goods. Now, look, I will concede that if you hit the ball farther off the tee, you're going to have easier approach shots. Let's put that out of the way.
Auto advantage with distance.
Okay. But here's the thing. I've also seen golfers with this in mind now, swinging themselves out of their minds.
Absolutely.
Mishitting stuff, playing from all over the place, where if they just play from the fairway a little more often, and there is a movement to that now on the PGA Tour, where they're stacking the odds in the favor. So advise the golfers, and this is in terms of speed. Now we're moving off the green. All right, look, to hit it longer is an advantage, but you've got to be a little careful with that stuff, don't you?
Well, like my buddy Andrew, when he was first starting to play golf, he's an athlete, but when he first started to play, he was an exceptional driver of the golf ball. He hit this little bleeder cut and he just played it, and he found a lot of fairways, and he hit it 270 to 290, and he was plenty long, especially for a club player. Are you kidding me? 270 to 290, the fairway plays every day at every club in the country. Then he started to try to hit it longer. And you know what? He's not as good of a driver of the golf ball as he used to be, because he's trying to hit it harder. His misses go both ways. That soft little cut that falls at 275 isn't there anymore as consistently as it was. And I totally agree with you, Mark, on this. And the bill of goods we've been sold: swing up at it, hit it like Rory, hit it 10, hit it at 12 in terms of launch. That's the case for Rory, who's one of the best athletes in golf. That's the case for Jon Rahm, who's one of the best golfers. But if you find a fairway, or again, if you hit the ball, I laughed when I was a kid at this, when they said drive for show and putt for dough. I said, it's really hard to putt for dough when you drive it out of bounds, right? Make sure you get the ball in play off the tee. And again, lean on what works for you. If you can launch it high and still find the golf ball, by all means, let's chase a little bit of distance. But remind yourself at times that getting the ball in play, taking a little off the driver, or maybe not even hitting driver in some instances, is okay for you. Because again, the job of the golfer is to hit it in the fairway, hit it on the green, 2-putt, make par, move on. And if you're not finding a lot of fairways, it doesn't really matter how far you hit it.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I'm doing these little Advent podcasts this season, and they're just nuggets. It's not like I'm going to blow your hair back with golf swing stuff.
Right.
And a lot of folks are missing this, where they're trying to hit the ball farther, so they're swinging harder. And what ends up doing is they misstrike. And so the ball speed goes down, and so the ball actually goes shorter.
Right.
And then they help themselves into this mire where they're going harder, getting less out of the thing. So look, I'm all for hitting it longer. God almighty, I want to. But you got to go about doing it the right way, to your observation.
Well, the idea that we should be following what the professional golfers are doing is a very, very silly thing. Like, I'm not playing basketball like LeBron James, right? I mean, when I was 25 and I was playing pickup 4 days a week, I wasn't trying to play basketball like Kobe Bryant. I was trying to play basketball like my body allows, and like I can be best at my game. Am I going to box out some bigger guys and get rebounds? Sure. Am I going to try to look for a guy that's a good shooter to get the ball to shoot a 3? Absolutely. But I'm not dunking, Mark. I'm not dunking like LeBron. And all these people, all these golfers are trying to dunk the basketball. It's like, you can't dunk. So do something you can do on the golf course. Work on your free throws, kids. Work on finding the fairway.
Right. So now I've got to organize myself. You've leveled a whole bunch on us. Equipment, fill the gaps. Practice, keep yourself interested. Be creative in practice. In speed, line over putting. Was there anything else?
I,
How
the only
Daytona
other
roll?
the only other note I would say is don't try to change the way your golf ball flies naturally. I would say it's a big thing. You know, you talk about distance and chasing distance, Mark, and I see so many people, and modern equipment has changed this where you can hit a cut with a driver and it still goes relatively far. But I would just say, and I've been battling with this, Mark, like this is something I've been struggling with because I never hit a draw up until about a year and a half ago. And I'm drawing my irons, and I
Yeah.
can't tell you how often I stand on a par 3 tee and try to hit a cut. And then it goes straight or it draws. I'm like, what are you doing, idiot? The ball's going right. Hit
Mm.
it, let it go right. Like let it fall the way it's naturally falling. So I would say if you can naturally move the ball one way, then that is a bonus and a benefit to your golf ball. Don't try to change something that helps your golf game.
I just came off the lesson tee. I was working with an aspirant professional. You'll find this amusing. He's a member of the MENA tour.
Okay.
So I'm like, what are you going to be playing for the big live bucks here pretty soon? And he goes, what? Anyway, that's an aside. And we had our review, and the year had been good, and so yeah, he listed out his goals and stuff, and he goes, I want to achieve this and this and that. So I looked at the list of them. I'm like, you can do one thing and get all of these done, and that is develop a go-to shot. Right? Have something that when the chips are down, you can get the job done. And then he goes, wow. He goes, yeah, I've been standing there, yeah, and you talk about Tiger changing practice, right? Tiger would talk about hitting the ball in the 9 patterns, high draw, high fade, etc.
Right.
And he goes, and I've been working on this stuff. And he goes, all that's happened is my hook has gotten bigger. So by the end of this thing, he's hitting a flatter fade with the draw available. But I'm like, now when the chips are down, you have something you can go to. And your friend and mine, Nick Faldo, he said to me countless times, he goes, he'll sort of hold his head when he used to announce and goes, this guy's got no B plan. He goes, he doesn't have a plan B. He's playing for the best case scenario. And when it doesn't happen, this is like, or all bets are off. And having a go-to your observation is paramount to success.
It's funny too, Mark, that this happens in the professional game. Having that go-to shot. I mean, I mentioned Homa earlier, but Homa has that fairway finder now that he leans on when he needs it. Tony Finau, who I would argue had the best calendar year, has hitting his little fairway finder now. Mind you, his fairway finder goes like 305, but still, it's a golf shot that he knows he can lean on when he needs to lean on something. And it's so important for these players. Swing out of your shoes all you want. You're on the 18th hole and you got to find the fairway. You better have a shot that you've been practicing and you're comfortable with hitting that is going to what, Mark? Find the damn fairway.
Amen. Hey, I want to add to that because I work on the course, you in the booth. I've called Tony a bunch. In fact, I had a couple of his wins this season. The final round in Minneapolis, this is 2022 because it's a podcast.
Right.
I'm dating the thing. He was playing alongside Grayson Sigg, who's like 5 foot, not very much, hits it high and short-ish for the tour. And Tony was not that far past him off a bunch of these tees. But when he needed to let one go, he had that gear. He'd hit this little cut into the fairway and draw all the irons, put on a clinic to win. And then your boy, Max Homa, holy smoke, man, at the President's Cup this year in Charlotte, that 18th hole, it was 14 for the tournament. Still, I think 14. Still confuses me what hole it was. Trouble down the left, bunkers on the right. It's one of the hardest tee shots in the game. It's nauseatingly straight, but the angles make it look crooked. And there's this little stream that meanders down the left. He sets this thing off. He's playing Tom Kim down the left side, just on the fairway edge, and just carves it into the middle of the fairway and smoked. And I was like, good golly, this boy is ready for the big time right now, because he had just sort of evened up the match, I think. And to get there on the tee first, hits this hard fade off that thing. I was like, wow, he's legitimate now.
Well, it's just, I mean, golf is about being comfortable, right? I mean, that's how we all can experience our best golf, is when we're the most comfortable. And typically when we play our worst golf, it's when we're the least comfortable. That's maybe playing a tournament for the first time, or you're getting deeper in your club championship than you ever have, or you're nearing a number you've never shot, right? You've seen so many players that, have to make par on 18 to shoot 79 for the first time and they make double. I mean, I've experienced it. I know you've experienced it. We've all gone through it. It's trying to find a way to feel the most comfortable in the most uncomfortable situations. And for somebody like Max, who years ago, told me that every single round he'd play professionally, he knew he was then eventually going to hit a foul ball because that's the way he was driving the golf ball, to now stand on the 18th tee in the most pressure-packed moment and to feel the most comfortable with a golf shot. That's what we're striving for in golf. And the professional might reach it easier than the average golfer, but we can get there too. And I think that's the big part about leaning on the shot you're comfortable with. Man, you know what? I hit this natural cut. I'm never going to try to hit a draw the rest of my life, right? I'm just going to let it fall this way. And if the hole calls for a draw, I'll take one club down and hit it straight. But make it easier if you can. And that's what golf can be, is it can be slightly easier if we're just a little less psycho about it.
That is stupidly wise. Okay, one more story. I know this is about you, but I have to share this, and I'll let you comment.
I'm loving it. Are you kidding me?
I've taught my share of good golfers in my lifetime, thankfully. And this youngster, very good, hits this fade, could set your wristwatch on the thing. I mean, it happened all of the time. And he plays this golf course down in South Africa, and just about every hole's moving from right to left, and hardwood's down the left-hand side. So it was kind of narrowing his field of vision, and he felt a bit hemmed in. So he says to me, and now I'm young enough and dumb enough to fall for this thing. I wasn't 52 then. And so he goes, I got to turn the thing right to left this week. So here we go, me armed with my golf teaching paraphernalia and him in his golf bag, working on the draw. Well, it was the shortest professional week that he had in his life. It was disastrous from the start to the miscut. And thereafter, I go to dinner with him on the Friday night, and he's pissed, as you can imagine, and I'm aggravated. And I looked at him, and I'm like, we'll call him Joe. Joe, his name's not Joe. I'm like, Joe, I stand accused for failing on that there. And he goes, what do you mean? I'm like, I should never have fallen for you trying to change your ball flight that you could go to the bank on in the interest of a short-term gain. And he sort of looks at me and goes, yeah, I guess. And I'm like, here's the thing. And now I'm giving this to you. I'm going to pass the ball like the point guard. All of us golfers, we have this like myopic, what's in front of me right now, as opposed to looking at the thing going, okay, well, maybe this situation's not for me. I'm going to survive this and just stay in the game, if you will, huh?
Well, you don't always have to hit the shot that the hole's asking for. And I think that as I've gotten older, I've understood a little better, is there are times when you're on the tee and it's slightly uncomfortable and you feel like, what's a long par four? I got to hit driver. And you go, well, if I cut the ball, I'm a lefty. If I cut the ball and there's water down the left side and there's trees hugging that right tee, and I've kind of got to squeeze one in there and feel like I either have to hit it straight or draw it, and I'm inevitably either going to hit it, pull hook it right, or I'm going to blow it in the water. And you go, or you could hit 3-iron short of the water and maybe you have 210 in, but you're at least allowing yourself the opportunity to make par versus hitting the golf shot that you think the hole's asking you to hit versus hitting the shot you're comfortable hitting. I did that this summer in I think it was a Connecticut Open qualifier or something. And it was a hole, and both the guys I was playing with hit driver in the water, and I hit 3-iron, 4-iron on the green, and had 30 feet and 2-putt for par. But 5 years ago, I'm hitting driver just right there with them, and I'm trying to hit out draw with my driver and probably hitting in the water as well, and probably making 5 or 6.
Yeah. A reminder, all golfers listening to this, 18 fours are 72, 18 fives are 90.
That's right.
If you're shooting higher than 90, just aim for 5, et cetera, et cetera. All right, Shane. You've shared where the golfers can get the book. What about following you? I'm sure folks want to share the social media, website, any of that sort of stuff, please.
Yeah. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Shane Bacon. I've got a podcast as well called Get a Grip. Been rolling out some fun episodes as of late. Had a scramble podcast in early December where me and Brendan Porath just talked about scrambles. We tried to fix cheating in scrambles. We tried to do all of the good things that scrambles don't bring to the table. So I got some fun guests upcoming on that as well. And yeah, that's probably the easiest way to catch me. And Mark, I obviously appreciate you having me on, and always appreciate the time to chat with you.
It was my pleasure. You bring a whole lot of insight to the game, and I'm a fan of what you do. So thanks for joining us. It means a bunch. Thank you.
Well, I echo the same sentiment. Thanks so much.